Roger, I appreciate you coming in. I know you told me I'm the only man that you'd come in and do this, but I was on my deathbed this morning, and I got an IV because I had food poisoning, and now I'm here. I want to start with Big Tish James.
Yes.
You've been breaking a story for the last month or so about Tish James living in Norfolk, Virginia. Now, there's a problem with that. She's the Attorney General for the great state of New York. How is her main residence in Norfolk, Virginia, when she's the Attorney General of New York City?
Yeah, John, this is only the latest in a long series, like a daisy chain of mortgage fraud by Big Tish. So just weeks before Donald Trump's so-called evaluation trial, pardon me, she filed a power of attorney with the mortgage company in which she said that within 60 days of closing on this property, she would become a legal resident of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The problem with that, of course, is that would make her constitutionally ineligible to be the Attorney General of New York. And actually, I checked New York state law. The way it works is if you move out of state, the office is automatically vacated. There isn't even a hearing. So only one of two things can be true. Either she moved, in which case she's not eligible to be AG, or she didn't move, in which case she is guilty of mortgage fraud. That would be interesting if that was just the first case, but you go all the way back to her first mortgage, one that she got when she was 24 years old, fresh out of Howard University. She claimed that her father was her husband in order to use his balance sheet and his finances to qualify for the mortgage, and the mortgage was granted. If you look on the mortgage, it lists Tish James and her father, Robert James, as man and wife. But if you look at the title on the property, it correctly lists them as father and daughter. It's mortgage fraud. Then there's another instance in which she got a property in Virginia under a HAMP loan, a federal loan, that was specifically for investment properties of less than 4 units. So she qualified for and got this loan, but I had somebody go look at the property. It has 5 units, not eligible. So I guess the bottom line of this is pretty clear, at least as far as mortgages are concerned. Letitia James says that no person is above the law except for evidently for her.
Right.
Now, this doesn't even go into the serial cover-up of sexual assault by her chief of staff, happens to be a Muslim, in which she clearly moved to cover that up. This lawsuit by at least one of these 3 women was filed in 2022. Only weeks ago, the appeals court in New York, dominated by Democrats, dismissed not the suit, but the suit against her.
Right.
So she's not being held responsible. And then you have the other really troubling question of how she financed her campaign for Attorney General. Most of that money came through the Democrat payment processing company, Act Blue. What they do, John, is they turn off the credit card verification where you have to match the address of the cardholder, and they basically funneled millions of dollars into her campaign from donors who either don't really exist, or when you contact them, when you go to their doorstep and you show them the 27 contributions they gave to Letitia James, they say to you, who? What?
Right.
What are you talking about?
Right.
So she's a fraud. And the irony of this is that she tried to hold Donald Trump to a false standard. She used a law which has never been used, claiming that he inflated the value of his assets in order to make commercial real estate loans, all of which got paid back on time. And the people who loaned Trump the money made $40 million profit. Yeah. And they would do the loan again tomorrow.
Of course.
So I think I think she's in big trouble. She has now filed a bunch of lawsuits, and she's trying to distract attention from this, but it won't work. Late today, there was a story that the Federal Home Loan Finance Administration has reviewed all of her mortgage documents, and they made a referral to the U.S. Justice Department.
Beautiful.
So we shall see.
Beautiful. So you've been in politics your entire adult life. You're probably one of the longest-serving political strategists in this country, okay? As a political strategist, not as Roger Stone, why is this idiot throwing stones when she's living in a very thin glassed house? I mean, she's went after Donald Trump. Anybody in the banking world will tell you what you had said, that it was the dumbest case that they've never seen brought before. She's now going after the Trump administration because she says they were insider trading. First of all, I don't think Donald Trump even owns any stock, so I'm not sure what the insider trading she's talking about is. He's a crypto guy. But she's doing all these things to put the pressure on herself when she's got far more problems. As you say, why put the pressure on yourself when you know that you've got skeletons in the closet?
I think it's diversion, John. She's trying to divert us to looking at this, looking at that. I mean, if we're going to investigate somebody for insider trading, let's start with Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
Let's start with all these members of Congress, both Republicans and Democrats, sadly, who have made millions on insider trading. This is a shot in the dark. I don't think she has any evidence of insider trading by Trump insiders. If you did go make a trade based on Trump's public comments, that's not insider trading.
No, of course.
So when Trump participates in a tariff war because he's going to bludgeon our trade partners into giving us a fair deal after ripping us off for decades, you don't have to be a genius to know what the situation is. And look, I'm not a sophisticated Wall Street investor. I own no stocks, no bonds. I don't own much other than the suit. I don't know much. But I do know that you're not going to find anybody in Trump's circle doing insider trading. It's all diversion, John, diversion for her own crimes. I think all of these things come to fruition. It's not just the mortgage fraud. It's the cover-up of sexual assault. It's the illicit and illegal financing of her campaigns. No, I think it's a new day in which we have one system of justice, in which we recalibrate the justice system so everybody's treated equally. It's not the way it's been, very sadly.
So now looking at it from the standpoint of the Trump administration, everything she's done to this man, why does he not have the Southern District of New York on top of this woman right away? And it seems, Roger, I'm a little bit disappointed. I want to get your take on this, about how slow the administration is moving on certain things. The JFK documents, the RFK documents, the MLK documents, the Epstein documents. They're dragging their feet on numerous things. This is one of them. I mean, something as simple as this, refer to the Southern District of New York. Very simple.
Well, in all honesty, I think that of all of the federal prosecutorial districts, the SDNY is still completely out of control. Just this last week, in a very high-profile crypto case, the judge read a memo from the Justice Department and said to federal prosecutors from SDNY, your views here today expressed seem to completely contradict this memo that I just got from DOJ. What's the story? And they said, we're not bound by that. We don't work for them. No, the president fired the Damian Williams, the corrupt prosecutor who did the Epstein death cover-up, who prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell for conspiracy, but didn't name any other conspirators other than her, who prosecuted P. Diddy for conspiracy. We're the other conspirators in that case. But he didn't go deep enough. And the three prosecutors under Damian, they all resigned to protest the Eric Adams decision not to prosecute. But the people who are still in place are leftist criminals who hate Donald Trump. What he needs to do, in my opinion, is fire every single person in the office and start over again. And leave it empty if you have to for the time being.
And it's not just the SDNY. You look at the Department of State under Pete Hegseth. Laura Loomer's out there finding. I mean, citizen journalists have to go into this and tell the president and his administration, this guy was there. I mean, it's so simple. I was talking with Tony Schaefer about this. There's maybe 1,000 people in the Pentagon who are top brass in the sense where their role actually means something. Everyone else is just a paper pusher, essentially, is what he explained to me. If you put 10 people in charge of weeding through this thing, you can get through it in a week. Why are these deep staters still infiltrated inside the government? We knew for months. We knew since November 5th. We knew since January 20th that this was going to happen. How is it that we're now months into this administration and it's the same shit as it was in 2016?
Well, and as one of my friends said to me the other day, even when we win, we lose.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that that's wrong. Look, I'm prepared still to give Kash Patel and Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt for a bit longer. I know them both. I like both of them. I had great confidence in both of them. But you do have to wonder. Some of these things are simple. So when the Inspector General of the Justice Department under Joe Biden finds that Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell illegally leaked classified documents, it should take you half an hour to get them federally indicted.
Right.
It could be, and this would not be illegitimate, a recognition that any Democrat charged with a crime in D.C., no matter how overwhelming the evidence, no matter how outrageous their transgression may be, they will immediately be acquitted. We saw that. for some weird reason, John Durham, instead of indicting Hillary Clinton and John Podesta and James Comey and the Islamic convert John Brennan, instead of indicting them, he indicts this poor schmuck Sussman at the very bottom of the totem pole. Which, John, this is like in a bank robbery, charging the guy who drove the getaway car with double parking while you let the bank robbers get away, and even that guy got acquitted. And then when a guy does get convicted, like this schmuck Kleinsmith, he gets a slap on the wrist, he gets disbarred, then he gets put back on the bar and he pays no price. No, we still have a double standard in America. We've been looking for this new president, this new administration to fix it. It has not yet been fixed.
Dan Bongino, we were talking about this before, put out a very odd statement, and I want to pull it up and read it for the audience to get their reaction and get your reaction to it, because to me, it's very, very odd for this administration. Now, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were two of the biggest mudslingers, saying they were getting rid of the FBI building, they were getting rid of this, they were getting rid of that, this, and that. Dan Bongino comes out yesterday and says, quote, actions that aren't immediately visible do not equate to inaction. What the hell does that mean? To me, that's just some bullshit excuse for you not doing your job after sitting here, going on your show every single day. Kash Patel came on, and I love both of them. More Kash than Dan, but going on your show every day, the building's going to be turned into a museum. Well, obviously, we know that was hyperbole, but still, they've done absolutely nothing. There's no excuses, in my opinion, Roger.
Well, I do think they are probably dealing with the difficulty of the D.C. Circuit. That's the problem, is that most of these crimes have to be charged there. There's not an honest judge on the circuit. We're talking about Amy Berman Jackson.
Well, I'm just saying from the employee aspect, not even charging anybody or bringing referrals. I'm saying the employees that he has working right now in the FBI are some of the worst people, Roger, the people who went after you. I mean, is that not a slap in the face to someone like you who was put through hell, bankrupted, and they're still working there?
In all honesty, I'm going to remain agnostic for the time being, because I have the highest possible regard for Kash Patel as a person of integrity and honesty who knows the full picture, because I've read his book.
Yeah.
Dan Bongino, I like Dan. I'm not sure why he gave up a $100 million radio career to become a federal bureaucrat.
Makes you wonder.
It does make me wonder, and maybe he's just doing it temporarily, but I do think he's a patriot. So I'm going to wait a little longer, but so far I'm not impressed.
Yeah, it's to me, it's reprehensible.
This is why federal action against Letitia James, as we just discussed, would show good faith with the American people that there's going to be one system of justice.
But it's not even that. It's Letitia James. As you said, it's Nancy Pelosi. Start investigating. Open investigations. We got all the money in the world, don't we? I mean, we have no problem spending money on circumcisions in Uzbekistan and Sesame Street in Afghanistan and handouts for everybody, whatever the hell you want. Take it, USAID. Here you go. Start investigating these people. Make them hire lawyers. Same thing they did to you.
I agree. I mean, look what's happening here in Florida. You have a new scandal in which Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and his overbearing, pushy wife evidently, essentially diverted $10 million from Medicaid. This is money that was meant to pay for health care for poor people and the elderly and the disabled, and they routed the money to a nonprofit they control and then siphoned it off to two dark money committees to oppose a constitutional amendment that would have legalized marijuana that was on the ballot here in Florida. Now, putting aside where you stand on the constitutional amendment, that's illegal. Who's investigating it? The Republicans in the state legislature are investigating it, which I think demonstrates huge courage, taking on a Republican governor who's clearly broken the law. And the current Florida Attorney General, who's appointed by DeSantis, is in the middle of this criminal activity. These are violations of both state and federal law. So, as a Republican, I say let the chips fall where they may. Yeah. I mean, I find the Republicans in the legislature are doing more to hold a Republican accountable than what's happening in Washington.
Yeah, I'm not like the Democrats. I don't say we should cover up anything. Just like Jeffrey Epstein. I don't care if there was Republicans who went to Epstein Island. If Donald Trump went to Epstein Island, I want to know on that piece of paper, and I want the world to know.
Right.
We shouldn't be covering up for anybody, because then it makes us just as bad as them, Roger. It makes us just as bad as the Democrats, who are criminals in a lot of cases. Nancy Pelosi insider trading, the rest of the Democrats insider trading, and the Republicans too. Dan Crenshaw, a big tough guy, insider trader. All of them. Why is there? It's just inaction after inaction after. It's like you allow this behavior to continue to happen.
Well, unfortunately, as you know, under current federal law, insider trading by a member of Congress is not even illegal. They're allowed to do this.
Yeah.
I mean, what we really need is fundamental reform so these actions are illegal, but we don't have that yet.
Yeah.
The president supports it, but it hasn't happened yet.
You're still looking good.
I'm still feeling good. You know, I've got all your MyPillow products. Mattress topper, bed sheets, MyPillows, towels, slippers, blankets.
I'm interrupting this commercial to do something I've never done before. Get 2 MyPillows absolutely free on orders of $100 or more. I can't do this forever, so get on board with this great sale today. Our best-selling 6-piece bath towel sets or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Our famous standard MyPillows only $14.98. Queens $18.98. King size only $1 more. Body pillows $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bed sheet sets. Any size, any color. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And when you spend $100 or more, get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
I want to turn to China. They're having a little bit of an issue. They're very upset with Donald Trump. The tariffs, we hear yesterday, NVIDIA is coming to America to spend a lot of money to produce chips here in America. But China says, okay, that's fine. You want to do that. We're going to stop rare earth minerals coming into America, which are mostly used for electric vehicles and the green energy stuff, which is sort of interesting. How do you think this all plays out? I mean, is Donald Trump, do you think, going to cave? A lot of people say he's caved on Europe, and he's caved on Canada, and he's caved on Mexico. How do you think he plays it with China?
I don't see that. Canada dropped their tariffs to 0, so I think he won that fight. The Canadians have come to the table. That's the first step, but he will win that fight. Look, I've known the guy 50 years. He never folds. He's the most stubborn individual that ever lived.
Yeah.
The Chinese, I think, know they're playing a losing game, but in their culture, as you know, saving face is incredibly important.
Yeah.
So I think that he's playing the long game. And virtually everyone has folded so far. I mean, Besant has told me that there's 209 countries in line to negotiate because they don't want these punitive tariffs by Donald Trump. And I'm sure you saw the giant chart he put up.
Yeah.
What he's doing to them is gentle compared to what they've been doing to us. So I think he wins this fight in the long term. And then initially I didn't know what to make of Howard Lutnick. And then I figured out that what we got here is a good cop, bad cop game that's been orchestrated. So they send Lutnick out to rile everybody. Then they send Scott Bessent, who I think may be the most brilliant Secretary of the Treasury since Alexander Hamilton. This guy is a genius.
Very smart.
Libertarian, believes in gold, outside-the-box thinker. They send him out to calm the markets. He's a calming influence. These guys are playing a very complicated 3-part game, which includes not just tariffs, but extension of the Trump tax cuts, which is vital. And by the way, Democrats know they're not tax cuts for the rich. They're across the board.
Yep.
And then we need serious spending and regulation reform. Elon Musk has shown the way. By the way, I met Elon for the first time at Mar-a-Lago this past Friday night. He was very gracious. When I told him I thought he was the single most important figure in the history of free speech in this decade, Trump said, hey, what about me?
He's got a point. Trump, I mean, they both went out on the limb and spent a lot of money to develop platforms that were just bare necessities because you're still banned on Instagram and Facebook, right?
Yeah, you can see how badly I feel about it.
No, but it's just so idiotic. And this idiot Zuckerberg is begging for Trump because of the FTC antitrust lawsuit, which may force him to sell Instagram. It's so funny to me. You see him buying a house in D.C. recently, Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody who was at the table tells me that when Zuckerberg showed up at Mar-a-Lago with a check for $1 million for the inauguration, Trump looked at the check and said, this is very nice. This is very nice, Mark. Now you're only $449 million short of the money you used to try to screw me in the last election. Yeah. So Trump's not giving these guys anything. And this idea that you can buy in, he'll take your money, we're not getting anything in return.
Right. Yeah, that's what a lot of people don't realize. How do we, proceed forward from here? You look at Ukraine. Zelensky meeting with Scott Bessent, essentially telling him he made him his little child, telling him, you speak to me like you're my equal. And he tells Donald Trump, if you want peace in this country, you're to come here. Who the hell does this guy think he is?
He's an actor.
Yeah.
He's a gay actor who's been hired to play the part of a president. He's not running anything. Surely he understands that Donald Trump could use a drone to hit him anytime he wants. So he talks big for a guy who has no power, but he's a puppet being manipulated by others in the EU. These folks are done. They know they're done. I'm not a big fan of Vladimir Putin. Everybody will watch this and say, oh, you're a Russian stew. John, my relatives got mowed down by Russian tanks in Budapest in 1956. I have no great love for the Russians or for Putin. But don't tell me Putin is a dictator and Zelensky is some great small d Democrat, because that's bullshit.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It would be so smart if America can normalize trade with Russia again, normalize relationships with Russia again, because then it puts us in a very interesting situation. It puts China on the sidelines, right? Because China at that point then has nobody to buddy up with. Iran is soon either going to be disappeared or they're going to have no nuclear weapons. North Korea, I don't think makes a move ever. So now China sits there all by themselves. Why is everyone against America trying to normalize relations with Russia? What is so bad about that?
Look, this was the great genius of Richard Nixon, as you know.
Yes.
I mean, he understood a couple things. First of all, the Russians and the Chinese have a long common border and literally centuries of distrust between both countries.
Yeah.
Just because they're both authoritarians, both because they were once at one point communists, does not mean they love each other. They don't trust each other. And we would never have gotten a strategic arms limitation. The truth is, Nixon was in negotiations with Brezhnev, and Brezhnev was starting to go cold on him. And Nixon was saying, well, when are we going to meet? Brezhnev said, I don't know, I'm thinking about it. So Nixon said, okay, never mind. By the way, I'm going over to see Mao next week. We just thought I'd hang out and be king, see how it goes. Now suddenly the Russians decided, no, maybe we should make this deal. Now those, and there are many, who I think inaccurately blame Nixon for the fact that today China is a threat to this country, they don't understand that when Nixon recognized China, most Chinese had no indoor plumbing. They had no toilets. The rural areas had no electricity. They were a dirt-poor, agrarian society. They had no technology. They did not have today's military weaponry.
Right.
There's no way for Nixon to see that 30 years later, Bill Clinton was going to give them most favored nation trading status. That is what made them the economic power they are today. And he was also going to sell them our top military missile targeting secrets in the Loral scandal. So what I think Trump is seeking to do is return to a day in which we can divide the Russians and the Chinese.
Yeah.
Our great menace, our great enemy is China. It's not Russia.
Yeah.
It's not. In fact, with Russia, we at least have one thing in common. We both have a severe problem with radical Islam.
Yeah.
A problem in their country, a problem in our country. We should be working with them against that menace as opposed to working at cross purposes. But the neocons, the Bushes, the Cheneys, the usual suspects.
Mitt Romney's.
Mitt Romney, they're committed to this Russophobia that really makes no sense at all.
Yeah. China, the Panama Canal, Greenland. How do you think that plays out? China blocking the sale from BlackRock, which makes no sense because Panama said they had no control. China had no control at all in the Panama Canal. And then BlackRock goes down there and says, okay, that's fine. We're going to buy the canal. And China goes, no, you're not. How does that play out? And Greenland?
I think these are separate situations with slightly different dynamics. But Trump is not going to allow the Panama Canal to be closed. Now, let's take a step back. First of all, I think we have to honor the guy who pointed this out first. What did Ronald Reagan warn us about? What did he say? We built it. We paid for it.
Right.
It's ours. And it would be strategically unwise to turn it over to some dictator who we now know has been completely co-opted by the Chinese. Donald Trump will not stand for any blockage of the use of the Panama Canal for either strategic or commercial purposes. And he's not a man to test. He's not a man to try out. So in the end, I think if he has to seize control of the Panama Canal zone, he will. I know that's not his desired outcome, but he's not going to let them use that choke point on America.
What about Greenland?
Greenland, to me, I had Colonel Douglas McGregor on my show today.
Good guy.
Who outlined the strategic of importance to it.
Very smart guy.
I don't buy this idea that the people in Greenland would much rather be aligned with Denmark all the way on the other side of the world. There's kind of nothing for them.
Yeah.
And I think there's legitimate strategic needs there. So, again, Trump will try to negotiate a deal, but if he can't get a deal, I think he will move to protect our national security.
I want to turn back to tariffs a little bit. He says that they have, coming up this week, they're going to have tariff deals and trade deals. What do you see happening? I mean, do you see him? Japan is one of the biggest, which you don't really often hear about Japan, right? You hear about China, you hear about Canada. They're one of the biggest debt holders of Americans' debt. I think it's $1 trillion. China's second at about $700 billion. Do you think we see one come in and then we see the rest of them just fall in line?
I do. I think they will fall into place. Argentina now has a deal with the United States. I think that's very significant. Vietnam, I think, was the very first country to open negotiations. I think you have a favorable deal there. The key thing here, and you know this, John, is you have to stay the course.
Yeah.
You can't fold in the middle of a negotiation. So Trump has staked his position out. Anyone who thinks he's going to fold doesn't understand him. He'll never fold.
Yeah.
And those who think they can wait him out are just wrong. And so far, he's proven to be right. So, yeah, I do think in the end they all fall into place. The one we don't know about is China. And even there, I think they know that they should make a deal, but they're very hung up on saving face and the way it all looks in the face of the world.
Yeah, I think Xi Jinping's in a lot of trouble with his people.
Right now, Xi Jinping is someplace with a copy of The Art of the Deal trying to figure it out. He's reading it right now.
You know, it's funny. Speaking, I had Grant Cardone on the other day, a really smart guy, and he had this issue with another guy. And Grant goes to the guy, Gary Brecka or something. He says, what can you tell the people, Gary? And Gary says, whoever does a deal with you, make sure they read the fine print because you are the greatest deal maker of all time. And it's the mindset, I think, that does it. I want to turn to some politics here at home. A good friend of yours, Tulsi Gabbard, tells us last week that the election machines are vulnerable. Now, Lou Dobbs was sued for it. Tucker Carlson was sued for it. Both were fired from Fox News. Fox paid a $787 million lawsuit. I sat through hours of depositions and on and on and on. Something we all knew, Roger. We knew for years that these machines were vulnerable.
Yep.
But now Tulsi comes out and confirms it. Does this move the needle on anything? I mean,
I think it's just the beginning. I think it's important, but I think it's just the beginning. I don't think we can retreat from this. Why Fox settled, I don't know. Why Newsmax settled, I don't know. I would not settle. I would say, yes, okay, great. Let's go right into depositions.
Yeah.
We have our experts. We have many, many, many questions we want to ask you under oath. You know what the voting machine companies would do at that point?
Fold.
They'd run for the hills. So it's just a question of having the fortitude to fight this out. I'm sorry, but you just look at it statistically. It's not possible for Donald Trump to carry Arizona by that margin and have that many voters drop down and vote for a dirtbag for the U.S. Senate. A guy who barely has a presence in the state and whose reputation is garbage.
Yeah.
Not mathematically possible.
Yeah. Well, but it's across the board. Wisconsin, which now Wisconsin, God bless them, they just went to paper ballots. Why can't the rest of the nation? Why are these Democrats so against it? For years, they talked about stolen elections. Lou Dobbs was talking about it in 2004. The Democrats were all on board in the show Kill Chain. Why can't we just agree on one thing? Let's go back to paper ballots. The Democrats won't get robbed and the Republicans won't get robbed. Seems pretty simple to me.
Well, Trump has embodied it in an executive order, but whether that's going to be carried out remains to be seen. How about having the election on one day?
Yeah.
Instead of 3 weeks. And mail-in ballots need to go entirely.
Yep.
Mail-in ballots should be illegal. Before he switched to the other team, if he was ever on our team, Bill Barr gave a great interview with Wolf Blitzer, and he said, these mail-in ballots are an open invitation for fraud. And then when presented by absolute fraud in Pennsylvania by the U.S. Attorney in Philadelphia, he refused to even examine it.
Yeah.
So that's how desperate these people are in their Trump hatred. But I'm sorry, if you want to tell me that Joe Biden did so much better in the African-American community than Barack Obama, a historic figure by anybody's that's just not credible.
Yeah.
It's not credible.
It's mind-blowing to me. I want to turn to Bill Maher. So many stupid people on the right, Roger, are championing this guy as a good man.
So,
he's a great man.
Let me tell you about Bill Maher. First of all, I did his very first pilot for Politically Incorrect in New York City. I did it as a favor to one of his writers, Frank Gannon, who had worked for President Nixon, was a friend of mine. Bill Maher without a platoon of comedy writers, is not even faintly amusing. He's not clever. He's not quick. He's not amusing. He's a jerk off, in short. His head is also much too big for his body, but that's a different question. This guy, when you go on his show, it's very heady. You know, they take you to the old CBS lot in Burbank. A beautiful young page comes out in her uniform. Oh, Mr. Stone, let me take you to your dressing room. They take you to your dressing room. It has a star on the door. It's very cool. His producer, a guy named Scott, very nice guy, was actually on my international best dress list one year. He comes into your room and he says, this is going to be a great show, but I need to warn you about one thing. I said, what's that? Whatever you do, don't try to be funnier than Bill.
Oh, my goodness.
So wait a minute. But Bill has a platoon of comedy writers. Everything he's saying is on a cue card.
Yeah.
Because he has no ability to think.
Yeah.
He's not even remotely intelligent. He's reading everything. And I said to the guy, well, but it's easier to be funnier than Bill, and I don't have a platoon of comedy writers. I just have me. I used an old joke. I said, I live by my wits. My uncles, Leibowitz and Markowitz. The guy doesn't laugh. He says, no, please, don't try to be funnier than Bill. I said, he's got this huge infrastructure. I'm just one guy out here by myself. The bottom line of this is, the last time I did his show, he accused me of being a traitor to my country. He accused me of being guilty of being a Russian spy. Then he himself subsequently comes out and admits, well, there was no Russian collusion.
Of course.
But he won't invite me back on to clear my name. I don't even think the guy's amusing or funny. Kid Rock should not have invited him to. Now my opinion of Kid Rock goes down.
Yeah.
We don't need this guy in the White House. All you're doing is legitimizing him. His show is not interesting. And I think he may weigh, 140 pounds, maybe?
Really?
Maybe. Yeah, he's very small.
Talks like a tough guy, which
he's
is
not so tough.
sort of interesting.
He's not so tough.
Steve Bannon goes on his show, and to me, I thought it was sort of embarrassing for Steve to go all the way out there and do his show, but then to sit there and be schooled on the Constitution. A man who goes on a show every day and preaches the Constitution, and Bill Maher pulls out a Constitution, reads in the 22nd Amendment, single line, no president may serve more than 2 consecutive terms. And Bannon comes out and says, we have a team working on it. Trump will be on the ballot and sworn back in January. To me, Roger, this gives the Democrats all the ammunition. The Republicans are insane. Project 2025, they're psychopaths, they're this, they're that. Why is he doing something like that?
I guess he's doing it, I guess it's trolling. I guess it's for the clicks because, look, I love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And if he could theoretically serve another term, that'd be great. But I think we both understand the Constitution is very clear. Steve didn't even have the cojones to say, well, what we're going to do is have J.D. Vance run for president, then we're going to have Donald Trump run for vice president, then upon election, Vance would resign, and Trump would move up to be president. Then because there's a vacancy in the vice presidency, he would appoint J.D. Vance to be vice president, and the Senate would convert Vance. That's a fantasy. It's an interesting fantasy. Does anyone believe that if J.D. Vance became president, which would be okay with me, I like J.D. Vance, that he would then resign to step aside for Donald Trump? I don't see that happening. So Steve is bullshitting, but I think his whole, look, I'm a very biased person, as you know.
A little bit.
Because he testified to the House Intelligence Committee under oath. He was asked by Adam Schiff, did you ever discuss WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, or these allegedly stolen emails with Roger Stone? He said, no, never. Schiff followed up, on no occasion. Steve said, no, never. Imagine my shock in my trial in Washington, D.C., where I'm fighting for my life, when the government's secret witness, dressed all in black, kind of like a fat Johnny Cash, sweeps into the courtroom, won't look me in the eye, asks the exact same question, and he says, oh, no, Stone brought it up in every conversation I had with him in 2016. In fact, I considered Roger Stone our contact point with WikiLeaks, which is all perjury, all false. So, look, I'm a Christian. The Bible tells us to forgive those who've trespassed against us. It's the hardest thing to do, John, particularly when you're Sicilian. It's hard for me to forgive this, but I have forgiven it, but I have not forgotten it.
Yeah.
So I think his whole backstory is largely bullshit. No, I don't think he made millions of dollars from Seinfeld. I think that's a fiction.
I didn't even know that.
No, did I think he was a genius on Wall Street? Here's what I do know. He was a very close friend of Jeffrey Epstein's. He visited Jeffrey Epstein's home in New York. It's in the New York Post. He visited Jeffrey Epstein's home in Paris. Why would you be hanging with a convicted pedophile? This was after the time that Epstein had been convicted in Florida. but prior to the time that he was charged federally. Why would you associate with somebody like this? Now, Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein made a documentary together.
I didn't know that.
Where is that documentary? Why we haven't seen it? Bannon admitted, you can find this online, that he was coaching Epstein for his 60 Minutes interview on how to get through the questions about his involvement with pedophilia. So, I mean, I'll let other people decide, but I think Steve Bannon is he's like a circus act. I mean, there's nothing real going on there.
I hear every day about the products you all wish MyPillow carried. Well, guess what? We probably do. Slippers, bathrobes, pet beds, blankets, mattresses, sleepwear, loungewear, duvets, comforters, pot holders, aprons, oven mitts, and so much more. And they're all on sale. For example, get our best-selling standard MyPillows for only $14.98. Body pillows, $29.98. 6-piece bath towels or kitchen towel sets, just $29.98. Multi-use MyPillow 2.0s with pillowcase, $9.98. Save $40 on our Spring Percale and Giza Dream bedsheet sets. Any size, any color, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save up to 80% on all MyPillow products. And I've never done this before. When you spend $100 or more, you're going to get 2 standard MyPillows absolutely free.
You're a man who's wasn't in trouble in your life until in serious trouble until 2016 when you decided you were going to become a Russian agent. You know,
right?
So, but I see Steve Bannon. You know the criminal justice system. You know what a plea deal is. But I see Steve Bannon and this guy Brian Kolfage, the military vet who's got no legs, who's in jail right now for that build the wall scheme. And I see Steve take a plea deal, admitting to stealing $2 million and goes to jail for 0 days. To me, I sit there and think, how does a man do that? Now, I only see things on his face. As someone who's been through the process, Roger, how does a man get out of jail time after admitting stealing $2 million?
Yeah, no, I can't wrap my head around it. So his 2 co-conspirators in ripping off his charity for $15 million and putting it in their pockets, 2 of them go to prison.
Yeah.
Steve gets a pardon from President Trump on that crime, but then he gets re-indicted since he never went to trial, unlike me, unlike General Flynn, unlike Paul Manafort. He got a preemptive pardon from Trump, and then they re-indicted him in New York. So I'm thinking, well, this guy's, a New York judge, going to be like the 2 judges who sat on Donald Trump's trials. This guy's in big trouble. And then he changes his plea from not guilty to guilty, and the judge in New York gives him 0 jail time. Now, you know what this tells me? It tells me he's cooperating.
Yeah.
Cooperating against somebody. Not me, that's for sure. But who's he cooperating against? Something there does not sit right with me.
Who? Give me your best guess.
I mean, I really don't
Donald
know.
Trump?
Well, that'd be a pretty sophisticated guess. I mean, somebody. First of all, it has to be somebody bigger than Steve. Well, that's almost anybody. We're not talking about weight here because we're talking about stature. And then there's the other question about I don't understand what his problem is with soap and water. I mean, why does this guy look to me like he's chasing down hobos for his wardrobe or he's dumpster diving? It's very hard to understand. Why can't this guy ever look like he's taking a bath?
Oh, boy. Yeah, it's truly remarkable. I don't things Lou used to tell me all the time. If it seems too good to be true, lift up the rug. There's probably a mouse under there. The thing that and we'll move on from this after this. The thing that I think is so strange about him is he was fired from the White House, okay, and claims he's this huge MAGA guy, but he's sort of persona non grata with President Trump, right?
Yeah, they're not particularly close. I mean, look,
why?
After he was fired, he said a number of things. He said that
he was the brains.
The Trump organization was a criminal enterprise.
Yeah.
Donald Trump Jr. is a Russian agent. Trump is not a billionaire, pardon me. And then it's like all those things are erased. Now, I see he had no involvement in the campaign, which is good because he doesn't know anything about elective politics. Those who say, well, he was the manager for Donald Trump's campaign, no, he took the written plan laid out by Paul Manafort. All he did was implement it.
Yeah.
So this idea that he was a Wall Street wizard or a Hollywood success or a great political strategist, he knows nothing whatsoever about elective politics.
Yeah. That's why I have you on the show once a week. People really enjoy it every time you're on the show. Before we move on, I want to say, at the time when it was time for you to go to either jail or to get the pardon, I'll never forget, Lou would call me every night, and he's like, we got to help Roger. We got to figure out a way to help Roger. I feel so terrible what they're doing to him. We've got to help Roger. We've got to help Roger. And, I hope, that Lou Dobbs was part of the reason, because, he really cared about you, and it was just a travesty, Roger.
I think there's no question there's about 2 or 3 people who are absolutely crucial in helping the president understand that I was prosecuted because I refused to roll on him. Well, they didn't prosecute me. They didn't storm my home at 6 o'clock in the morning because I did something wrong. They had investigated all their Russian collusion. They come up empty-handed, so they had to invent something. So they were trying to pressure me into claiming that I was some kind of intermediary between WikiLeaks and Donald Trump, which was a lie. Larry Kudlow, Lou Dobbs, and Tucker Carlson, the 3 most important figures in convincing the president, Mr. President, please look at this. This guy did nothing wrong. They're trying to destroy him and his family because he's standing tall for you, because he won't be Michael Cohen. That's all they really wanted. They just wanted to be. I remember it very distinctly, sitting with these prosecutors, and they said, you're going to prison. I said, yeah. They said, if you don't cooperate, we're going to hit you with superseding charges. I said, okay, well, you do whatever you want. They said, but there is a way out. You got to cooperate. I said, yeah. They pushed this piece of paper across to me. They said, all you need to do is sign this. I look at it. It's all bullshit. I said, all you need to do is shove that up your ass. So, I was a man staring into the abyss, and I am grateful to Jesus Christ. I'm grateful to Tucker Carlson and Larry Kudlow and Lou Dobbs. I'm most grateful for Donald Trump, just seeing with the big picture what was going on. But there was no way I was doing that. Just no way.
Yeah, I could attest. I was there for phone calls while he was on the phone with the president talking about it because he cared. I mean, it was just a travesty what they did to so many of you. Papadopoulos, low-hanging fruit. These people...
Papadopoulos is not a fruit. I just want to say that publicly.
Not a fruit? But they never paid the price. None of them ever paid the damn price for everything they've done to these people. Comey's out on doing whatever the hell he wants. Brennan is out doing whatever the hell he wants. Nobody's ever paid the price for the shit that they did to you guys, which was, reprehensible and beyond repair. You had to move out of your home. You were getting harassed. CNN was at your front door. You're just a small piece. I don't mean that literally, but you're just a small piece of a big picture. There were so many more Roger Stones who were just getting the shaft.
No, look, I think that first of all, the Durham thing was a fraud. So,
yeah.
In other words, Barr said to Durham, you're going to investigate this. Take as much time as you can. Just make sure the statute of limitations have run on anything that you discover. Barr never even investigates the alleged Russian hack of the DNC. That's because it never happened. There is no Russian hack of the DNC. So that was a holding action. They never intended to prosecute anybody. Then, as I said earlier, Durham prosecutes this poor schmuck at the very bottom of the totem pole, and even he gets off. So will anybody be held responsible? Remains to be seen. Kash Patel, Pam Bondi have the authority. Here's why. There is no statute of limitations on treason.
Correct.
You could be charged with treason at any time if you're guilty of it. These people engaged in treasonous activity. They have to be held accountable.
You had mentioned Seth Rich, and Lou Dobbs was sued for Seth. I was talking with Mike Benz about this the other day. Lou Dobbs and Fox News were sued by Seth Rich's family. They settled the day before I think they were going to trial, simply because Lou Dobbs said Seth Rich was murdered. The family came out and said, well, he wasn't murdered, he was robbed, which didn't make any sense to me. Ty Clevenger, who happens to be my attorney, has been on the FBI's back about this for years, okay, asking for his laptop. Now, Ty tells me something very simple, Roger. Seth gets shot in the back of the head, not robbed, right? Nothing's missing. His brother flies out from Colorado to D.C., picks up his laptop, his work and his personal laptop, and flies back to Colorado. Does anybody think that's normal operating procedure for your brother who was just assassinated?
No, and we're the videos of the last hours of his life.
Right.
He's in a bunch of public places where there's security cameras. We have none of those cameras. Anybody would know that at my trial, the FBI was forced to admit that they never inspected the computer servers of the DNC.
Of course.
And that CrowdStrike's, the company that did, which allegedly had evidence of Russian collusion or Russian hacking, admitted before the House Intelligence Committee they actually had no such proof. But when I, pardon me, fighting a cold. When I wanted to bring in Bill Binney, the former counterterrorism IT expert for the CIA, who could have provided expert testimony and forensic evidence that shows that the download times of the material that was stolen from the DNC had to have been downloaded to a portable disk and taken out the back door, well, Judge Jackson, of course, would not allow such testimony because it would blow their whole false narrative wide open. And today, Seth Rich is like the third rail of American politics. If you mention it, you'll get sued. But his own father said that his wallet and his watch and his jewelry and his credit cards were all intact. So it wasn't a robbery.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to talk about this.
No, because like you said, everybody's litigious about everything and getting sued. But this just goes to the point that we're talking about earlier. Release the laptop. A judge ordered that Ty Clevenger be given the laptop. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, what are you guys doing? Give the guy the laptop. You've confirmed that you have it. Things like this, Roger, that can happen like that are not happening. There's got to be a reason. Now, Julian Assange, I think, is a hero. I think he's an American hero. I don't think he's this brilliant hacker. Okay, he was given materials and he put them out. In my opinion, that makes him a good man. Edward Snowden, you can argue maybe it was treasonous, some of the things he did. Maybe it wasn't. I happen to think no. Because he laid out that Americans were being spied on illegally. So, take it for what it's worth on that. But this is something so simple that Pam Bondi and Kash Patel can say, here, Mr. Clevenger, here's the laptop. The judge said you can have it.
You have to wonder what other pressures are on them. You have to. Because you're right, it's illogical.
Right.
Now, I've read Cash's book, so he knows the whole story.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder what other pressures are on them. Look, I continue to have faith. I have faith in Trump. I have faith in God. I have faith in those individuals. I guess we shall see.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet. Some of my friends are a little more impatient than I am. But I have to admit to you, it is troubling.
Roger, we have a year and change because the midterms come and the Republicans, it doesn't look like, in my opinion, I don't think the Republicans hold the midterms, but you may have a different opinion, just historically.
It's just too early to say.
Historically.
But all historical records are out the
With
window.
Donald Trump.
We never had a president who was not a governor, or senator, or general, or congressman. Now we do.
Yeah.
We never had a guy, other than one Democrat, nobody ever was elected president, cheated out of re-election, then came back. Everybody bet against Donald Trump. He's done. He's finished. He's through. But here he is, back in office and better prepared than he would have been had he rightfully been given the office in 2020. So I'm still optimistic. And for those who are ready to just throw in the towel in the House, it's just too early to do that. Here's what I know. I went and got a dozen eggs on Sunday. They cost me $5.50. Last time I bought eggs, Joe Biden was president. They cost me $8.90. Gas prices are down. Interest rates are down. It's a little early to throw in the towel on the 2026 elections.
But just hypothetically speaking, if they do lose it, right? The investigation starts, the impeachment starts, and he sits lame duck for the next 2 years. That's why I think we got to move. I mean, Mike Johnson's been sitting on his ass doing absolutely nothing. Last week, we finally get something out of him after months. I mean, these guys got to start moving at record pace. November, they take the summer off. Okay, so they come back in November and campaign season starts, where these guys got to defend their seats. I mean, it comes up and it creeps up quick. You know this. They don't hold the House, Roger. We're screwed.
Well, maybe we are, maybe we aren't. The executive has enormous power. Here's what they cannot do. They cannot steal the House. So let's take the example in Florida 14, where Kathy Castor won that seat over Commander Rocky Rockford. 54,000 mail-in ballots were counted by people. When you look at their application to vote, there's no Social Security number and there's no date of birth. The House Administration Committee is the final arbiter who won that seat. Mike, this is simple. Even the rhinos will vote with you because they want to retain their committee chairmanships. Yeah. We could have picked up a seat there by doing the right thing. Instead, they say, oh, no, he missed some artificial deadline. There was no deadline. So if we're going to let more people vote in Orange County, California, in 2 congressional districts, we're going to let more people vote than are registered to vote, well, then shame on us. We deserve to lose the House.
Yeah.
We're going to fight for every seat.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I guess we'll see in the coming months. Roger, I appreciate you coming and joining us today in the studio. You get the last word here, because next week when you're on the show, I'll be back in New York, and you'll still be in the free, well, it's kind of free with high mortgage rates and high insurance rates and high utility rates and high car mortgage rates. But aside from that, it's one of the most beautiful states in the country. You get the last word here.
First of all, I'm honored that you put on a necktie, which I know you wouldn't have done for anybody but me.
No, it's correct.
And I would never come to a studio for anybody but you. Look, it's great to be with you. I remain an optimist. I still think that America's greatest days lie ahead. I think we're about to enter a golden age, an unprecedented age of peace, prosperity, security, and justice. all we have to do is not become a panicant, not lose our nerve. We have to stick to the plan, stick to the course. And I think that God, who actually ordained our victory in this most recent election, because in many ways it was unlikely, it was improbable, I think God will continue to guide this nation to greatness, and I think he will destroy the demons who've been trying to destroy America. Thanks, John.
Folks, you heard it from the great Roger Stone. Roger, we'll see you next week back in the great state, well, not so great state of New York.